19th, 2022. As permitted by the governor's disaster declaration of April 1st, 2022, the determination has been made that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent for this committee to meet in person. To ensure a transparent and open meeting as possible, we will post the meeting materials approximately 1 week in advance. We will provide a recording of this meeting linked to that website, and we'll take all votes on roll call. Before beginning, I'd like to make a few logistical announcements. This meeting is being recorded. Please use the mute function when not speaking. This will help eliminate excessive background noise. Those on the phone can press *6 to mute and unmute themselves. Members of the public, if you have questions during the meeting, please use the chat box. The staff will be monitoring it. Additionally, if you wish to address the committee during the public comment agenda, you can indicate your desire to do so in the chat box. Lastly, the members of the committee, when making a motion, please include your name so staff can properly record it. That concludes our pre-meeting announcements. Thanks for everybody attending. These are challenging times, as all of us know, because we have to do it this way. Hopefully the day is coming when we will be able to resume our meeting downtown. And for all of us, it's going to be kind of a new experience because we'll be moving to the new CMAP office, which is in the old post office building, which towers over the Eisenhower Expressway that comes into downtown. So it is an interesting moment. I'm sorry we've had a delay in bringing this group together at that location, but we will be making history here soon when we will be able to have our very first meeting there. So let's move then to item number 2 on our agenda after I've just completed my announcements, and that's for the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Does everybody have a copy, and can somebody make a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved, President Warner, Village of Worth.
Second, Gallagher, Western Springs.
Very good. We have a motion and second for the approval of the minutes for the January 25th, 2022 meeting. Any discussion about them? Not, do we do roll calls on this, Terry, or we do voice votes?
It's a roll call vote.
All right,
Mary.
ask clerk call the roll.
All right, I'm going to read off the names of the committee members that I see on the call. President Darch.
Yes.
President
Wait,
Hayes.
Hold on, this is Terry. Can we do this roll call, this vote and a roll call at the same time? Because we didn't do the roll call. Is that okay?
Yeah, just hold on.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, so I'll start over. This will be for the minutes and then roll call. So President Darch.
Yes on the minutes and present on the roll call.
Thank you. President Hayes.
Yes.
President Sherwin.
Yes.
President Gallagher.
Yes.
President Brady. President Werner.
Yes.
President Einhorn.
Yes and yes.
Mayor Kolish.
Abstain because I wasn't at the last meeting, but yes, I am here. Thank you.
Mayor Shelkey.
Yes and yes.
President Rybeck.
Yes, and abstain since I was unaware of the last meeting.
Okay, and are there any other members on the call who I missed?
Mayor Skillman, Carpentersville.
Okay, and do we have a vote from you on the meeting minutes?
Yes, on the meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe that concludes
Did President Brady chime in? President Brady, can you send us an email or a text? Mayor Shelkey, I think we can still go ahead. We had a quorum and we have enough ayes.
Right. that's always, having participated in a number of these situations over the last couple of years, is getting started and identifying who's here and who isn't is a challenging moment, but I think everybody understands the issues at hand and we do the best we can. And I think the staffs do a great job of covering us well and making sure we got everybody accounted for. So I thank everybody for your participation and understanding in this, as we have to kind of struggle through such things as just calling a roll call and approval of minutes, but those things do happen. All right, well, and thank you for everybody that, thank Mary for her efforts to lead the roll call here. Okay, let's move to item 3 then, which is new business. Item 1 is the CMAP update from Aaron, our executive director.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Glad to see you all. I had a few things that I wanted to looks like I don't have a slide, but that's okay. I'm not going to spend too much time this morning. I have made the offer if you are downtown and would like to come see our offices. We are open. Staff are working 50% of the time from the office, and we'd be happy to show you around. It's a beautiful building, lots of great amenities, and now that it maybe cross your fingers this spring, the rooftop is really great as well. So I wanted to just provide some updates on the state side of our agenda and watching here at the agency, things that we've been tracking here. So the Illinois General Assembly, as many of you know, adjourned on April 9th after passing a budget implementation bill and tax relief package here. There were a couple things that I thought might be of interest here. So the RTA Transit funding report directly impacting CMAP as an agency. The General Assembly passed legislation requesting that CMAP work with the RTA to develop and submit a report on recommendations to the state suggesting potential changes to the transit recovery ratio, sales tax, governance, fare structure, and other items that would ensure the financial viability of the region's public transit system, something that we care about deeply. It also said that the report should address racial equity, climate change, and economic development, and be supported by the public and have some public engagement led by CMAP on these efforts as well. So CMAP is required to have those recommendations adopted by the MPO Policy Committee and delivered to the state by the end of 2023. There are a couple other things that we thought were worth talking to this committee about here. There were some updates to the MFT. As you're well aware, in 2019, the state's Rebuild Capital Bill doubled the gas tax from 19 cents to 38 cents a gallon and included an annual inflationary increase that raised the gas tax across the state. For the next 6 months, the indexing will be put on hold. We've been monitoring the suspension to ensure that lost revenues will be backfilled by other state funding mechanisms that will go to the Transportation Renewal Fund, which provides funding for transit investment across the state as well. Another piece of legislation that passed that impacts local governments would exempt local governments from the GATA requirements, the Government Accountability and Transparency Act requirements for awards, including capital appropriated funds made by IDOT to local governments. So I'm sure you're aware of that. I think, again, the paperwork required from my days at IDOT, I think was pretty burdensome on local governments. So I think that's a huge win for locals. 2 pieces of legislation were approved by that will allow IDOT, the tollway, and counties to pursue design build delivery methods to deliver and expedite project delivery. So currently IDOT uses design build, bid build. So that method really sort of is a linear method to accomplishing projects. What design build lets you do is sort of overlap some of those stages together so that you can see some efficiencies in your timeline on project delivery. So there's a capping in terms of how much those projects that can use the design build method can a ceiling. So that's $400 million at the state and tollway levels. And it also allows for counties to make the 2-phase design build selection process into 1 phase for smaller projects under $12 million. I think another thing that I wanted to share with you all, and some positive news related to the work that we've been doing on fares, fines, and fees. The state's earned income tax credit was increased from 18% to 20% and expanded to include eligible taxpayers between 18 and 25 and people over the age of 65 that would otherwise qualify but don't have children. So one of the things that our fares, fines, and fees project really illustrated was just expanding and increasing this tax credit makes the income tax system more progressive and is a strategy for mitigating against the regressiveness of some of the transportation fines, fares, and fees that exist across our region. And I know also important to you all is the local government distributed fund. So it was increased from 6.06 to 6.16%. You know, I know that our government partners have advocated for years for this to return to its original 10% as it was in 2011. So a small increase there, but moving in the right direction, I'll say, for moving forward. Those were a few of the things I wanted to update the committee on. One other thing that I'll just mention is that we have been building a team and a process and a program to help support municipalities across the region develop ADA transition plans and really evaluate their systems. This was based on the need for this was really based on the work that the Metropolitan Planning Council did, looking at the lack of ADA transition plans that exist for communities across our region. So there is a requirement that if you do receive federal funds from the Federal Highway Administration, that you have an ADA transition plan that looks at, you know, the ability for your community to be completely accessible, and put together a plan that helps you use your capital funds over time to address those issues. And so it's not about completing all of the ADA projects that you have. It really is about making sure that you have a plan to take steps forward in addressing ADA compliance in your community. So I will be out. We have a new director who will be overseeing this project, and she just started this week. So we will be out. We want to come to Council of Mayors meetings. We want to get out to the other places where municipals are to have them understand how we can help support you in addressing ADA compliance in your communities. So if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to put you directly in touch with our team, but that's something that we've been working on pretty steadily here. This will be a 10-year program, probably be valued at about $10 million, but we've got about $2.5 million set aside for this next year to begin the process. So with that, Mayor Schilke, I'm happy to answer questions.
Does anybody have any questions of our executive director?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Did CMAP support the increase in LGDF?
You know what? I'm going to have to go back to our team and see if that was on our agenda for the board. Laura, I know you're on the line. Do you know?
Actually, yeah, I'd have to check. I'm not sure if we slipped on it or not. I'll go back and check since Anthony would have done that. So let me check.
We'll get back to you, Mayor Einhorn.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Any questions for the executive director? Well, thank you. Are you going to be able to stay online for the rest of the meeting?
I'll stay on for most of the rest of the meeting.
Okay, very good. Think something may come up. I have a feeling. You never know. Moving then to 3.2, which is the STP Project Selection Committee update. Kama?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mayor Schalke. The STP Project Selection Committee last met on February 10th. At that meeting, the committee discussed STP shared fund eligible project types and conducted a review of existing and proposed scoring criteria for further discussion in the coming months. As a result of the discussion, no changes to the prior cycle's eligible project types will occur, and staff is exploring the feasibility of adding rail yard expansions as an additional eligible project type. While the majority of the scoring criteria will not be considered for modification for the next call for project cycle, a discussion of a few criteria, including the jobs plus household scoring, need and improvement scoring for safety projects, minor refinements to inclusive growth scoring, and shifting to more scope-related scoring for green infrastructure is expected, along with discussion of incorporating sustainability and/or resiliency into the scoring and the inclusion of electric vehicle infrastructure within projects. The committee's April meeting was canceled, and the next scheduled meeting will be held on June 23rd. An additional meeting to replace that canceled meeting will also be scheduled in July or August. Shifting to project implementation, I am pleased to report that the obligation of both STP and CRISA funding is ramping up a bit as we enter spring here. Through March, about $8.5 million was obligated for shared fund projects, and over $37 million has been obligated for STP local projects. This is just under 20% of the funding that's available to the region for federal fiscal year 2022. Also, thus far, 12% of the region's CRISA funding has been obligated. Last on my list today is just to draw your attention to the programming marks memo that was included with the agenda materials. As noted in the memo, these marks reflect substantial additional funds from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or the IIJA, with over $203.5 million in STP funds available to the region in federal fiscal year 2023. The IIJA also includes modest annual increases, which staff has applied to the out years of the marks table, which grows our regional allotment to just over $218 million by federal fiscal year 2027. The individual marks for the shared fund, CDOT, and the councils are provided in the memo. These marks were provided to the planning liaisons a couple of weeks ago so that they could get started developing their recommended programs from the STP local applications that were just received in the January to March timeframe. So that concludes my report this morning. Happy to answer any questions about STP or CRISA programs or the committee's activities.
I have a question.
Of course, Mayor Sherwood.
Okay, you mentioned something about rail yards there. You're going pretty quick. So can you go back to that?
Sure. Sure. So since the beginning of discussions of eligible project types, we've been tossing around the idea of commuter rail yard expansions as an eligible project type. In particular, there's a project in Woodstock along the Union Pacific Northwest line that's been an interest to McHenry County. One of the things that we're struggling with, frankly, is how to evaluate the need and improvement from such a project and whether it is technically eligible as well as feasible to complete under the STP program. So staff's still working on that analysis, and the committee's likely to be talking about that in June.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Other questions of Kama? I guess not. All right, thank you, Kama.
Thank you, Mayor.
Chad Riddle from IDOT will now give us a quick update from the Bureau of Local Roads. Chad, are you with us here?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. I just, I tried other means of getting in. I kept getting bumped out. So here I'm finally in. Good morning, everybody. Not a lot to report from local roads. I usually go through the lettings, but Kama pretty much summarized the funding, and that's the key thing you look at. It's not necessarily the number of projects and all that kind of stuff. So the expenditures were summarized very well by her. From a local road standpoint, between March and September right now, we're targeting about 75 projects to be out there on the street being let. So we are moving ahead. Everything's working smooth. We're working very well with the plan liaisons as far as the paperwork goes. So I want to thank them again on the record. So, but other than that, like I say, staffing really hasn't changed at IDOT here, and we're being hopefully very efficient, and we've had no issues or any complaints from local agencies or the planning liaison. So if there's any issues, I'll take questions, comments. Otherwise, I'll just sit back and relax like I do every day.
Anybody have any questions or comments for IDOT? Now's your chance. I will tell you that as the chairman of this group, I've had several of our members comment to me recently that they had some various IDOT issues, and that IDOT has been on top of things and has worked very diligently with us and those involved in whatever it was they were concerned about. And so I've gotten some, not always have I gotten rave reviews about IDOT and its service, but recently here, there's been some nice things said. So I appreciate the good efforts of IDOT throughout the region. And we certainly want to continue to encourage a very close partnership with the CMAP Council of Mayors and IDOT, because I think it has proven over the years that we do get things done with this ability to talk directly with those in Springfield or Schaumburg or wherever this office may be that we're dealing with. So I appreciate the good efforts from IDOT.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else have any final comments they want to throw? Okay, we'll move to item 3.4 on our agenda, which is the update on the Onto 2050 plan. And I am told that Yusuf Sama, our CMAP Deputy Director, is with us to do that. Are you here?
Yes, I am. And good morning, Chair Shelkey, and good morning to everyone participating on today's call. I'm here to share a progress report on the update to the Onto 2050 regional plan. Next slide. But before I do that, I think it's very important for me to thank every one of our CMAP staff who've been involved in providing their tireless efforts into this update. There is a significant amount of plan update activities that we're going through that I'll sort of discuss as we go through this presentation. So I just want to thank everyone for their tireless efforts on that, and emails and responses that go on well past the traditional business working hours. So thank you very much, everyone, for your efforts. The Onto 2050, the Regional Comprehensive and Transportation Plan, was adopted in October of 2018. However, as all of you know, a lot has changed since that time. And even with all of those changes, what we learned nearly 4 years ago from the research that we obtained and we've heard from talking with more than 100,000 people across our region continues to resonate and hold value as we move forward, including the 3 principles of that plan, which includes inclusive growth, resilience, prioritize investment. Our efforts and work now continue to reaffirm this. Next slide. The role of the plan update. The plan update provides an opportunity for CMAP and our regional partners to reaffirm the vision of the Onto 2050 plan by exploring those principles and their continued value in the current context. Additionally, allows CMAP staff and its stakeholders, all of you, to adjust those projections for the future, to review and celebrate our accomplishments that we've achieved over the last 4 years, while also reassessing our transportation needs in the region. Next slide. Our plan update is undertaken through a multi-year development of 10 separate but interlocking activities, as you can see listed here. These activities are still in progress. Our staff are continuing to develop these plan update reports, be it our socioeconomic forecast, our conformity analysis, our TIP update, the regionally significant project evaluation, and the financial plan. Today, I will be providing a preliminary overview of the financial plan and the RSPs. However, before moving on to those, I want to touch upon some of the future milestones and the respective timing of those milestones. Next slide. So the red dot that you see to the right of calendar quarter 3 for FY22, which is where we are now, having just started in April 1st, leading up to June the 30th, is where we presently are today. And as I mentioned, we are currently working on updating many of those 10 previous update activities, drafting our forecasts and working on our RSP evaluations. We're hoping to complete those activities between now and the end of the calendar quarter, and then hopefully go to our MPO and board in the month of June to ask for their approval to begin the public comment period over the summer. And that'll take place, as you see, to the right of calendar quarter 3 of FY22. The public comment period will commence through the summer, and we're hoping to complete the plan update with those comments towards the first quarter of fiscal year 23, and then to have the plan update approved sometime in calendar quarter 2, September to October of 2022. So there's certainly a lot of activities that are happening between now and the next 6 months as we complete our draft update documents, go to public comment, and then move towards a plan update approval. Through that entire process, we certainly encourage your participation in reviewing those documents and providing us your comments and feedback through the next 6-month period. Next slide. So now I just want to go in to the financial plan and just provide some of you with some very high level updates as to where we are with this financial plan. If we can move to the next slide, please. So the financial plan for transportation, in the financial plan for transportation, I should mention, CMAP lays out the anticipated future costs and resources available to our region over the next 30 years to fund our transportation system. This activity assesses the uses and the sources of over $500 billion in transportation system funding. It is important to note that because we are a fairly built-out region, our transportation system is rather massive. Just to sort of put a point to that, northeastern Illinois is home to over 3,200 miles of expressway, 18,000 lane miles of arterial and collector roads, 35,000 miles of local roads, over 300 interchanges, 3,200 bridges, and 7,700 traffic signals. Not to mention, we also operate and maintain one of the nation's largest transit systems. So in that context, today's investments must make the current system first operable, needs to modernize it, and continue to stay well maintained in order to work better for everyone. And that is why nearly 82.5% of that $500 billion is allocated to operating and maintaining our existing system assets alone. That being said, there's approximately an additional 13% that is dedicated to improving and enhancing the current system. And that only leaves approximately 5% or less available for adding new capacity. Going forward, our region must prioritize additional funding sources for modernization and maintenance of our transportation system in order for it to be safe and reliable, as we all hope, while also preparing for future mobility influenced by new data, communication technology, private mobility services, and increased multimodal trips. The financial plan for transportation prioritizes how the region will use anticipated transportation funds between now and 2050, including how much is, as I mentioned earlier, going to operating, modernizing, and maintaining the system. Next slide, please. Next, I just want to get into some of the regionally significant projects and just sort of walk through the process and the projects that were submitted. Next slide, please. So in September, sorry, let me start backwards. The RSP process began in the summer of last year. The ON2 2050 update maintains the same definition of RSP projects that was stated at the onset of the ON2 2050 plan. To identify candidate projects, CMAP solicited projects from member partners across our region. Regional transportation implementers submitted both unconstructed projects previously identified in the ON2 2050 plan, and new projects considered for the first time under the plan update. Approximately 74 projects were considered. CMAP also reassessed the region's significant projects in the current ON2 2050 plan. These are expressway projects, transit system, arterial projects with impacts and benefits large enough to warrant additional conversation through the regional planning process. CMAP carried over the same evaluation process that was used in the ON2 2050 plan. Evaluation of each project focused on addressing current needs, improving 2050 travel, and to the degree in which the project fits within the ON2 2050 planning priorities. So you can see from the slide here, 74 projects were submitted. 13 of them are newly constrained projects, 9 arterial, 1 expressway, 3 transit projects, and 9 expressway reconstruction and interchange projects also carried over. And just with this to name some of the few that were there, some of the new expressway projects include the I-57 at Eagle Road project, the Brown Line Core Capacity Project, which includes a new yard, reconfiguration, and upgrade of portions of track systems and power, the Ashland Ogden Infill Station, for instance, and the I-294 Tri-State Bus Enhancement Project by PACE. And this next slide here, as you can see on your screen right now, just sort of illustrates just the tentacles of where these region significant projects are allocated across our 7-county region. As you can see, starting from where we are here in the city of Chicago, just the expansive nature of the geographical location of these regionally significant projects. There are several projects that I'm very pleased to say that are currently under construction or are anticipated to begin construction within the first 3 years of the plan update. So between now and 2025, that includes the I-290, I-88, I-294 interchange improvement project, includes the Blue Line Forest Park reconstruction project, as well as the North Red Line Purple modernization project and the South Lakefront Museum Park campus access improvement project, as well as several arterial projects through our region. I want to sort of just pause there. I'm happy to take any questions you may have directly or facilitate any questions that you may have to any of our staff here. I want to thank you very much for your time this morning and just remind you that our staff is continuously working diligently to complete the 10 activities that I outlined at the start of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Well, we thank you. I just want to make the point that Yusuf and his staff are available to us, and if any of our sub-regional councils, of which most of us are represented at this meeting today, have some questions on a variety of subjects, they're available to come on out and meet at your meeting, and we'll bring along the data that you're wanting to talk about. And I'm very, very, very pleased with the kind of, under Aaron's leadership, how we've got CMAP really kind of get into each organization and present, the information that's needed by the local councils to know what's going on, number one, but secondly, gives us the right to chime in with some thoughts we may have on whatever the project or idea is that's being promoted for the region. So as most of you know, I've been around here a long time, and this is probably the best communications effort I've ever seen as far as we've had it on a regional basis. So we've made major progress for this, and I just want to publicly thank the CMAP staff under Aaron's leadership for kind of putting this together, because we really do need it. And I would certainly now encourage anybody on the call that you got any comments you'd like to make about what's going on here. I think it would be good for us to hear what you have to say. Does anybody want to make any questions or comments?
Chairman,
Go ahead.
if I may, that the roster of bridges, lane miles, and so forth are very impressive, and that's a lot to maintain. It's sort of mind-boggling that there's that many things in the region that need, I won't say constant maintenance, but they need attention on a continuing basis. Thanks for having that all enumerated in that way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the nice things about what we're trying to do here is kind of include us all in the conversation. And I've had people complain to me in the past, that things are being done by whoever in the region, and when nobody knows about it, or nobody told us about it, or knows what's going on, or whatever. I mean, if you think of the things that are going on right now in the region, the Illinois Tollway's got a lot of stuff going on, especially the rebuilding of 294 around the Chicagoland area. And, we've already done some stuff extending 90 and, 55. We got buses on both of those running on the shoulders of the roads. And we've done a lot of different new ideas that we brought into the region, and there's more to come. And I think that's the value of our organization, is that we have a seat at the table, and that there's an importance that we understand from a regional perspective where we want to go. And certainly, unfortunately, and this has always been the case, politics gets in the way in this to a certain degree, and that's never going to go away. But, right now, as I sit back, not directly involved in some of this, but as the chairman of this group, and I look at a lot of the conversations that are happening within the city of Chicago, there's a lot of things for, I think, all of us in the suburbs to wonder about as to what is or is not going to happen there, and what impacts that may have directly or indirectly on the rest of us. And so this is a real important time in the history of the region, that we got this communication and this ability to meet like we are today, and just offering up the questions. So I'm I'm kind of stressing this today with the idea that in future meetings we have, if anybody's got any wonder or questions or concerns about things, this would be a forum in which you can bring them up and say, hey, what's really the story here? And I think you will get the true picture from the CMAP staff. I have no doubt about that. There won't be any games being played, and we'll know a lot of stuff. And, you know, there's a lot of questions on a lot of different things. It's an exciting time to be part of the region when you have this much dynamic going on. And the way between Washington and Springfield that they're flowing money around here, I'm not sure that's going to last forever. And I wonder what's going to happen when that dries up, but that's probably another question for another meeting. But there's a lot of stuff floating around here. So I'm glad we got the staff that we do that's watching out for us.
Mayor Shalke, if I may just to add to the comment as well. And first of all, thank you so very much for the kind words. I think, you know, in the context of when we talk about how large our system certainly is here and how much of it is certainly needing to be operable and certainly maintained, I think another sort of thank you that needs to be sort of sent out, I think, is to all of your municipal staff, whether it be from the design and the procurement and the contract administration department. Because the one number that I did not pick up on here is just how many hundreds and if not thousands of procurements our administrative contract and procurement staff across our region are having to go out and put into the market and manage, I think is absolutely extraordinary. So I just want to thank all of you and your procurement and administrative staff for all of the hard work that they're going into doing in terms of maintaining this system.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments or questions for Yusuf?
Mayor Schilke, if I could just pop in for 1 second, this is Erin.
Sure.
I was going to say, you know, we're in the process of updating the 2050 plan, and we aren't really sort of taking the approach of throw the baby out with the bathwater on the recommendations and the policies set forth in the 2050 plan. You know, it's a requirement that we update the plan right now, and that's due in October of this year. But then eventually we will be embarking on developing a 2060 plan. And so what this does is sort of provides a stepping stone along with some of the other projects that we're working on, including the work that we've been doing to better understand how mobility is changing across our region and what the future of work might look like and what we need to do to address that. So, you know, one of the things that I think is most interesting in some of the mobility recovery work that we will bring back to this committee, I would say at your next, in one of your next 2 meetings here, is that 70% of the jobs across our region can't be done remotely. Well, at the same time, we're seeing white collar workers in some parts of our region on a given work day. It's maybe 25 to 35% of people are working from home on any given day. Now that's, you know, an agglomeration of all of the people who could be working home. So some jobs are 100% remote, we know, and, you know, CMAP has committed to our staff to doing 50% remote. So again, that really is going to shift how our transit system looks. I think that we've been talking about how we help support workers that can't work remotely get to the jobs and manufacturing jobs that exist across our region in your communities. So just sort of planting a few seeds here with you all so that when that conversation comes up in the coming months that, you know, I think it is going to be in partnership with your communities and your councils that we need to sort of understand how we transition to the future of a transportation system that works better for everyone. So on the horizon, things that we're definitely digging in here on CMAP, but I think things that your perspectives will provide a lot of value to as we you know, explore the future of the long range planning initiatives that we need to take here at the regional level.
Well, thank you for that insight. I mean, that just kind of adds to the dynamic of the whole situation that we're dealing with here. This is an exciting time, but it's also, it's one that we're kind of building a road to the future that we don't know all the answers to. And it's good that we have this regional conversation going on so that, number one, there's communications, but that everybody can feel like they can contribute and that they're part of the region can benefit from what's happening and that they can be part of the planning and ask for projects and go forward. So it's a very open and productive process that I think we put together here, and we got to do everything we can to keep it running in the right direction. So Thank you and the staff for all you're doing. So we are moving in, I think, in the right direction. Okay, we're done with the Yusuf then for the moment. Okay, let's move then to item 3.5, which is the local government network update, and that's Patrick Day.
Hey everyone. So yeah, as you can see, I am not Patrick Day. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Lillian Apple. I'm an associate planner and I'm the new project manager for the local government network. And I've been on the local government network team for a while now, doing more of the behind the scenes work, but now I'll be transitioning into this new role as project manager as Patrick steps into his new role as principal. So I'm excited to get these updates at the Council of Mayors meetings moving forward. So last quarter, we completed our 11th initiative, and that was for the local government network to reach out to municipalities to ensure that we had updated contact information for everyone. And that was mainly to make sure that for this year's upcoming initiatives, we were aware of any staffing changes or anything that might have affected the current contact information that we had for the municipalities. And we had a good amount of responses with several contact updates. And simultaneously, we performed an internal initiative where we asked our staff to provide ideas for future initiatives for this year. And in this next quarter, we'll be performing an initiative that builds off of the 11th initiative, where we requested contact updates from municipalities. So for this next initiative, there are still some communities that we haven't received any updates from, and that maybe we haven't heard from in the past, that we'd like to perform further outreach with to ensure that we do have a connected contact with them. So ideally, we're hoping that we'll have a connected contact in all 284 municipalities of the region. So that way the network can be as strong as possible. And we'll continue to make sure that we're maintaining our contact information as we maintain the network. So that concludes my update, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Do we have any questions, Lily? Well, thank you and welcome aboard, and we'll look forward to working with you in a much stronger position than previously, and look for your good efforts to help us out. So thank you for joining the group.
Great, thank you.
Moving then to item 4, which is other business. Does anybody on the call have anything they want to throw on the table at the moment? Okay, not hearing anybody. I guess my next move is to go to item 5, which is public comment. Do we have any public comment from online or anything?
We have not received any notification that there's anyone who wants to make a public comment at this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Garen's living at these days, if he's out in Iowa or he's back in with us, but he's normally our public comment.
I know, and he has been on a few of our TC calls and also MPO and the board as well. So, but I think he's also getting very actively involved in what's going on where he is now. So he may be there.
I mean, over the years, he presented every now and then some fairly productive observations. So
absolutely,
I really commend his interest. All right, I guess then going to the next meeting, if there's no public comment, the next Council of Mayors Executive Committee will be on July 19th, 2022. This meeting will may occur in person. Staff will let us, the committee members, know if that is to be the case. If there's no other business before the committee, I'm adjourning the meeting and looking forward to hopefully seeing you in July. So we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.